Hi guys, welcome back to SwitchUp. My name's Mark Walker. I hope you're all well. I am now 99.999% better from this chest monstrosity, which I am delighted to say, and hopefully you are all doing well as well. Remember, the sale price will reflect which region the sale is available in. If it says NA, then it's not unfortunately on sale in your region. First up then, and unsurprisingly, we've got Hypercharge Unboxed, which we reviewed on the channel. Now, Glen thoroughly enjoyed this Toy Story-alike first-person shooter. It's a team-based game, so it's preferably played online with a group of friends in co-op, where you fight against different waves of enemies. Now, the mix-up here is that you can then place down turrets, so there's a tower defense element here. They recently released a massive update, which includes loads of new features to the game, totally free of charge, which improve it further, and we'll put a link down in the description to a video that will tell you all about that. If you want to check out the review of that one as well, then do go down and check that. But at this nice juicy little sale price, this is worth considering. Now what I would say is do try and make sure you've got a good little group of friends that you can play with online. It's very easy to join up with other people. There is PvP here as well if you'd like to go and take other people out. Consider checking this one out while it's on sale. My second recommendation, and one I'm going to be playing through again with my children through this lockdown, is Spyro the Reignited Trilogy. Now this originally released back on other consoles, and they did such a good job of just modernising the graphics enough but not making it over the top and either too realistic or too retro. It was just the perfect balance. The main area that I enjoyed was how well they improved the animations. Now for the most part it's the exact same game you remember from your childhood, or I should say games, with each of the three titles having their own unique stories and seeing you play as Spyro as he tries to take out the bad guys. There's something really relaxing about these titles, and I think that just comes from how nostalgic they made me feel for those past days of being able to play games all day, every day. Hang on, that was today and yesterday, and yeah, Spyro the Reignited Trilogy from Activision, definitely worth picking up at this price. A title that's mostly known amongst, I don't know, hardcore Switch fans is Panpan, A Tiny Big Adventure. This is a lovely little top-down adventure title. It can be a bit tricky at times. It's not the longest game ever, but it describes itself as an open-plane adventure that expands on the concept of environmental narrative storytelling, with puzzle solving and exploration elements at its core. For me, there were probably three things that stood out. The visuals, they're so clean and crisp, and their performance is really good. The soundtrack is lovely, has a really nice original soundtrack produced by Simon Viklund, I believe his name was, and you use a mixture of different tools and gadgets and devices to solve the various puzzles. It's a lovely little game and very cheap indeed, well worth picking up. Then we've got probably the best Sonic title in years, and it's really Sonic 4. The guy who made this looked at some of the other titles that were released since Sonic 3 and was like, yeah, I think I can do this better. And he did. He really did. This is running at 60 frames per second. It has the core characters that you know and love. There is the Encore DLC that you can buy for £4 as well if you want, but it's not essential, it's just a nice little addition. You can play 1 to 2 players, local co-op, and yeah, I think just the bosses, everything about it, and there are a few new mechanics that weren't seen in the original games that rather than feeling tacked on, feel complementary to them and actually improve them. I think Christian Whitehead just did a brilliant job, to be honest, of making the 4th game that everyone wanted. The Witcher 3 is a title that gets mentioned by everyone, and it should do because it's incredible. There are still people out there, you know who you are, who haven't picked this up for whatever reason. It's currently 30% off on the eShop, which while still not the cheapest you can buy it, if you've got a PC, if you've got a PS4, go out and buy it over there, but if you're with Switch, then the complete edition can be had for 30% off. It's an amazing game filled with other games. This is what created Gwent, if you know the card game. You can play that from within this title. It has a ton of DLC here. There's hundreds and hundreds of hours. And if you need a bit of escapism, this is the way to go. Plus, it's won 250 Game of the Year awards. That's ludicrous. Next up in this ridiculously good sale, we have Diablo 3 The Eternal Collection for a, man, 50% off. 50% off, and that's going to go until the 19th. It's got the Diablo 3 game, the Reaper of Souls expansion, the Rise of the Necromancer pack, which has 7 different classes, 5 acts, and yeah, there are different seasons here as well, so that as you play through, the developers are always trying to do new things and improve the game. Until we get number 4, this is going to be a time well spent. Yes, it does have co-op. You can play that locally with up to 4 people, or you can play online locally with up to 4 people. Or if there are 4 switches in your house, you can join and do a local area connection with 4 people. Incredible game, amazing, very addictive, and well worth a look if you're interested. I'm so happy to finally see the Touryst from Shinen Multimedia on sale. This is going on until the 19th, so you've got a good chunk of time. If you're unaware of who Shinen Multimedia are, they bought us Fast RMX on the Switch, which was a slick 60 frames per second, almost like a Wipeout title. The Touryst is completely different. It's like an island hopping adventure game, which I described in my review as being similar to Little Big Adventure if you ever played those titles. Not exactly like it in terms of core mechanics. There's just an otherness to the different islands that I enjoyed a great deal. Once again, it's another title full of escapism. They've baked in an arcade where you can go and play classic racing games, and there are some very unusual and strange boss fights. Highly recommend this one. It's worth going and checking out. The recently released brilliant ports of the Metro 2033 and Last Light are also on sale from Koch Media. This goes on till the 19th. If you've not played them, they're quite linear in terms of storyline, but there's a nice stealth element to the games as well, particularly Last Light. Weapons can be customized as you go through the game, and you can collect the weapons of dead enemies, as well as throwing knives, and do stealth takedowns. Despite its darker tones, I didn't find this game very scary, and there's certainly a more light-hearted attitude between the different characters in the game. I enjoyed this immensely. Very good, very well told, and obviously based on the novels of the same name. If you're not sure about it, then go and check out a review. Yes, it has gyro controls if, like me, you like to use those for those precise headshots. Then we've got a game that was released quite a while back now, and it's Rogue Legacy. It's a bit of a classic really. Glen reviewed this. There is a sequel in the works if you're unaware of that. And I remember last week I was chatting a little bit about some gaming theory, so I'm going to throw in my game theory this time. There's something in games called, well, there's a theory that basically links these 3 ideas and perhaps goes a bit further to explain why these titles are so addictive. Firstly, there's competence. So the game needs to make you feel competent. It's either can't be too hard and it can't be too easy. It has to be somewhere in the middle for most players, which again would explain why games like Dark Souls can be quite off-putting for some people. However, other players like to push past until they're competent, and then it kind of falls into the middle curve. Then there's the flow of the game. This comes down to loads of different factors, including level design and structure, but essentially it should create a deep concentration in the player. That feeling, you know, where you're just like, I've got to do this, and you just can't almost stop doing that thing. You get so focused on it. That's called the flow. And then the last element that supposedly makes them so compelling is autonomy, the fact that you've got control within the game. And supposedly, the theory goes, that changes the way you're able to interact. Whereas you might not be able to interact autonomously in society, you might find it difficult to go out and talk to people and do X, Y, and Z. The game, much like we said last week, gives you the autonomy to go and perform whatever it's asking you to do. And that creates a bit of an enjoyment and fulfillment loop. So there you go. Bit of boring theory for you this week. And Rogue Legacy certainly ticks all of those boxes. It's currently 68% off until the 15th. Let's finish off almost where we started with Fast RMX from Shinen Multimedia. Now, we spoke about this one earlier. If you've not played it, it's an excellent sci-fi racer running at 60 frames per second and looking far too good for the file size. I'm not really sure how these guys managed to squeeze such amazing titles into such small file sizes. There are 15 different vehicles to race in, 30 tracks set in canyons, alpine peaks, futuristic cities, and much more, but it's just that blistering pace. There's also online play up against up to 7 other players, and the hero mode that you can unlock if you play the game enough. Well worth it if you're looking for a bit of home arcade racing action. As we do every week, let's quickly look at a couple of games that you should avoid, like some kind of rat-infested sewer. Perhaps rat-infested sewer is a bit harsh. First one that I would say, for me, isn't really a win, would be Police Stories from Hypertrain Digital. I was really looking forward to this. I was a big fan of games like Police Quest back in the day. I was hoping for something similar, but this is a top-down shooter-cum-couch co-op / tactical strategy something game. It just didn't click. Nothing quite worked. It was a bit of a jack of all, master of none, and for me, there are better games for the price. I mean, you might say down in the comments this is great, but it just didn't do it for me, I'm afraid. Still, I could be totally wrong and you might like it a lot. Who knows? The next one I would say to avoid, and I hate to say it because it's from our good friend Sometime to You, but it's the Moose Man. It's, you know, when you play these experiential games and they're so emotive and you're working through and things are happening that make no sense and you're supposed to feel special about it, but you're crawling along at such a slow pace and eventually it loses its luster and you're like, do you know what, this is just boring. Unfortunately, this for me fell into that category. At first I thought, wow, this is, so emotive. And then after about 25 minutes, I was like, can I just run now, please? Please let me run. So yeah, have a look, see what you think. You might think, oh, that looks lovely, but yeah, it's not for me, this one, I'm afraid. So that's it for part 1 of our sales series. Obviously, there are many, many games that I haven't mentioned yet. That's why we're going to have part 2 in a day or two to try and get loads of this sale covered off for you and give you some idea of what you should and shouldn't buy. Hope you enjoy it. Please leave me a comment down in the description. It's really nice to be feeling well again. I'm not going to lie, I was a bit worried, but I'm not anymore. So I hope you're all well and looking after yourselves. For all things Switch, all the time. Oh yeah, big thanks to our patrons. Keep it Switch up. Cheers guys. See ya!